pull up a chair and lean in close for this one, because today we are blowing the dust off a very dark, heavily suppressed corner of history.
Yeah, a corner that the highborn lords of Westeros have spent generations quite literally trying to bury in the mud.
Right. I mean, if you read the standard annals of the Red Keep, or if you just listen to the minstrels, they sell you this pristine, highly choreographed illusion of chivalry.
Oh, absolutely. They sing those soaring ballads about shining armor and fluttering banners, right?
Yeah, and noble knights fighting with this peerless balletic grace. But the manuscript we have in front of us today, it dismantles that entire myth.
It completely shatters it.
It proves that honor in this world isn't won with grace. It is bought with teeth, with shattered bones, and with mud.
It absolutely does. And you know, what we're analyzing today in this deep dive is a blood-stained, really fragmented account from the year 209 AC.
Hidden away for a reason.
Exactly. In the Forbidden Archives, it's simply known as Blood in the Mud, the Trial of Seven. And honestly, the historical weight of this single document, it just cannot be overstated.
No, it really can't.
Because we often assume the destiny of the Iron Throne, and really the fate of an entire continent, was dictated by sweeping continental wars.
Or, the majestic flight of dragons.
Right. But here, the succession of the dynasty was derailed in a muddy puddle in a small, unremarkable market town called Ashford.
Just a random field.
Yeah, and it culminated in the death of the greatest king Westeros never had, killed in the absolute chaos by his own bloodline.
Okay, let's unpack this, because to understand how a ceremonial tourney devolved into a 14-man slaughterhouse, we have to examine the trap that forced it into existence.
We do. And it begins with this jarring clash of social classes.
Exactly. On one side, we have our protagonist, Ser Duncan the Tall. And Dunk is this massive, unknighted, penniless orphan who practically clawed his way out of the gutters of Flea Bottom.
He doesn't even have a proper claim to his armor.
Right. Which is this striking juxtaposition against his adversary, Prince Aerion Targaryen.
Aerion is just the epitome of unchecked royal privilege. I mean, the texts describe him draped in this custom enameled armor that was forged to look like literal dragon scales.
Oh man, the vanity.
It's pure vanity. But beneath that exquisite metallurgical craftsmanship, the man is profoundly sadistic. He uses his royal blood as a shield to inflict cruelty on those who just cannot fight back.
And that leads to the inciting incident for all this. Dunk commits what is basically the ultimate social heresy in Westeros. He uses his fists against Prince Aerion to protect an innocent puppeteer.
A peasant physically striking royalty.
Yeah, to save another peasant. Now, Aerion could have just had his guards kill Dunk on the spot, but instead, he demands a trial of 7 to settle the matter.
Which sounds crazy.
Right. Wait, I have to push back on Aerion's logic here. Because if Aerion just wants revenge, why invoke a 14-man melee?
It's a valid question.
Doesn't inviting 13 other heavily armed men into a fight introduce way too many chaotic variables? I mean, it seems incredibly reckless for an arrogant prince who just wants a quick execution.
It does seem reckless on the surface, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's actually this brilliantly malicious piece of political engineering. Aerion isn't just trying to kill Dunk. He wants to make a theatrical example out of him.
Ah, the theater of it all.
Exactly. The Trial of 7 is an ancient Andal custom, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, the Andals brought the fate of the 7 to Westeros.
Oh, so it's a religious thing.
Right. By invoking this specific trial, Aerion is weaponizing religion. He is forcing a scenario where the gods themselves will supposedly judge Dunk's guilt, but mathematically it's an unwinnable scenario for a hedge knight.
Because of the logistics of recruitment, right?
Exactly. Aerion can effortlessly fill his ranks with royal family members and the Kingsguard. Dunk, on the other hand, is a penniless stranger.
He has nothing to offer.
Nothing at all. He has to convince 6 other men to willingly bleed and potentially die against the royal family for absolutely no financial reward.
Wow.
Yeah, Aerion calculated that Dunk wouldn't even be able to find 6 men, meaning his life would be forfeit before a single sword was even drawn. It's an engineered execution disguised as holy justice.
Which brings us to the sheer brazen hypocrisy of the Westerosi nobility. Because Dunk actually manages to find someone he thinks he can trust. This knight named Sir Steffon Fossaway.
Oh, Steffon.
Right. But at the absolute 11th hour, while they are literally strapping on their armor in the tent, Steffon betrays Dunk.
It's so hard to read.
He calmly switches over to Prince Aerion's side just because the sadistic prince promised him a lordship. It's honestly worse than a bad-off lawyer in a modern courtroom.
Oh, far worse.
By switching sides, Stefan isn't just abandoning Dunk's defense, he's legally authorizing his murder. He becomes a sword actively swinging at the man he just swore to protect, entirely for a piece of land.
And that brazen corruption acts as a catalyst, because Stefan's own cousin, Raymond Fossaway, is standing right there in the tent watching the price of a Westerosi soul being negotiated.
Right in front of him.
Yeah. And Raymond is so thoroughly disgusted by his cousin's utter lack of honor that he demands to be knighted on the exact spot.
And just snaps.
He does. He sheds his own family affiliation to take Stefan's place and fight for Dunk.
It's an incredible historical pivot born purely out of spite and moral outrage.
Yeah.
And it attracts this genuinely fascinating ragtag group to Dunk's banner.
It really does.
You've got victims of Aryans' past cruelty, and you've got men like Sir Lionel Baratheon, the Laughing Storm, who, they seem to join just because they love the idea of bruising Targaryen egos.
They just want a good fight. But despite that surge of rebellion, as dawn breaks over the Ashford meadow, Dunk is still one man short.
Oh, man.
He only has 6 combatants, and the rules of the Andal trial are absolute. If he cannot present a 7th knight, the trial is void and he is executed.
The atmosphere in the manuscript here is just suffocating. Dunk rides his horse back and forth before the grandstands, desperately screaming for just one true knight to remember their vows.
And he gets nothing?
Nothing. The crowd of highborn lords and ladies gives him dead silence. They're watching a man about to be legally murdered, and they do not care.
They're just spectating.
But then, from the castle mist, a lone rider emerges. And he is clad in immaculate black armor, bearing a shield painted with the 3-headed red dragon.
It is Prince Baelor Targaryen.
Baelor Breakspear.
Yes.
The hand of the king, the crown prince of the entire realm.
The heir to the continent rides out, risking the entire Targaryen dynasty to fight against his own brother and his own nephews.
All to save a peasant from Flea Bottom. Gives me chills.
It raises an important question, though. Put yourself in those grandstands for a second. The crown prince just rode out into the mud to fight his own family.
Yeah.
Are you siding with the ironclad law of the bloodline and the divine right of kings? Or are you siding with the honor of a true knight defending the helpless?
That is heavy.
It is a profound philosophical crisis playing out in real time before the entire realm.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because the singers like to paint Baelor as this pure romantic martyr who just rode out to do the right thing.
Right, the shining hero.
Exactly. But the military logs and our sources reveal a massive, spicy plot twist. Baelor didn't just join this fight out of foolish nobility. He was a hardened battlefield commander, and he knew exactly how to weaponize Westerosi law.
He was brilliant.
He found a loophole, and he exploited it flawlessly.
What's fascinating here is the sheer tactical brilliance of his opening maneuver. The moment the heralds blow their horns and the 14 knights charge across the meadow, Baelor doesn't aim for Aerion.
He ignores him entirely.
He immediately targets the 3 Kingsguard knights who are fighting for the opposing side. And to understand why this is genius, you have to look at the sworn mechanics of the Kingsguard.
Right.
They are bound by a sacred, lifelong oath to obey the king and to never, under any circumstances, bring harm to a prince of the royal blood. Oh, wow. So it's essentially a system override. Baelor targets them, and it's like a hacker finding a fatal loop in a system's code.
Precisely. Baelor creates an impossible legal paradox. By charging directly at the Kingsguard, he legally paralyzes 3 of the most lethal men on the continent.
Because they can't hit him back.
If they strike back at him to defend themselves, they break their most sacred vow and face execution for high treason. Baelor uses their own prime directive, their honor, to force a system shutdown where they physically cannot fight him.
That is insane.
He neutralizes half the enemy force without shedding a drop of blood. It is highborn political chess, played at a full gallop.
It's an absolute masterclass. But, while Baelor's playing this immaculate game of legal chess, we cannot forget the physical reality of the Ashford meadow.
Right, it's not a board game.
For Dunk, this isn't chess at all. It is a terrifying, chaotic slaughterhouse. Just think about the physics of what is happening here. 14 massive war horses, draped in chainmail, colliding at full speed.
The noise alone would be deafening. Lances are shattering, men are screaming, the mud is flying everywhere, and in that very first chaotic charge, Aerion's lance strikes true. He hits Dunk with so much kinetic force that Dunk is launched completely out of his saddle and thrown flat onto his back in the dirt.
And this is the exact moment the romantic illusion of the tourney entirely shatters. The rules of formal engagement are just gone.
Completely gone. Dunk is bleeding, the breath is knocked out of him, and he is staring up at Prince Aerion. And Aerion is wielding a spiked morning star, fully encased in custom impenetrable plate armor.
A walking tank.
Yeah. If Dunk tries to fight him with a sword, like a traditional knight, he's going to die. A standard broadsword cannot cut through tempered steel plate.
It just glances off.
Dunk knows he is hopelessly outmatched in a game of chivalry. So he drops the act.
He adapts. He realizes that adhering to the noble rules of combat will only get him slaughtered by a prince who has no honor to begin with.
Exactly. Dunk flashes back to the desperate, filthy alleyways of Flea Bottom. He abandons his sword and uses his one true tactical advantage, which is asymmetrical warfare.
He's massive.
Dunk is nearly 7 feet tall. He lunges forward into the muck, wraps his massive arms around Aerion's legs, and violently wrestles the armored prince down into the mud.
Dragging him down to his level.
And I don't care how much your dragon-scaled armor costs or who your father is. Highborn swordplay means absolutely nothing when a 7-foot giant severely restricts your mobility and sits directly on your chest.
It is a profound leveling of the playing field. I mean, armor is designed to deflect glancing blows from a blade, sure, but it makes you incredibly cumbersome on the ground.
You can't move.
Once Dunk takes away Aerion's mobility, the mud doesn't care about royal bloodlines. The mud equalizes everything.
It really does.
Yeah.
And Dunk grabs his own shattered shield, the one painted with the elm tree and the shooting star. He doesn't use a blade. He wields the rim of that heavy shield like a blunt club.
Oh, brutal.
He just starts bringing it down into Aerion's enameled helmet.
Yeah.
And structurally, that is how you defeat plate armor. You don't cut it. You deliver repeated blunt force trauma until the concussive shock waves neutralize the person inside.
Concussing him right through the steel.
Dunk delivers a brutal, unglamorous, street-level beating until this sadistic, arrogant prince is reduced to a whimpering coward, crying out in the mud and yielding the fight. Dunk wins.
He does. The penniless hedge knight survives the impossible duel. But as we see time and time again in the dark annals of the Red Keep, victory on this scale always demands a blood sacrifice.
There's always a price.
Always. The cosmic scales of Westeros must be balanced. And to understand the tragedy that unfolds next, we have to shift our focus away from Dunk, across the chaotic battlefield, to Prince Maekar, Aerion's father.
Baelor's younger brother.
Yes, and Maekar is a remarkably complex psychological study. He's a man consumed by decades of deeply buried, simmering resentment.
Sibling rivalry on a royal scale.
Exactly. For his entire life, he has lived in the suffocating shadow of his older brother. Baelor the brilliant, Baelor the honorable, Baelor the beloved heir. Maekar has always been the second son, the blunt instrument, perpetually second best.
So you have all of that deeply ingrained inferiority and baggage just waiting for a spark to ignite it.
Precisely. And the spark comes when Maekar hears his son, Aerion, screaming in absolute terror beneath Dunk's fists. Pure parental panic sets in. A roiling, blind fury takes over Maekar's mind.
It's just red mist.
Now, Maekar is fighting with a massive, heavy black mace. This is a weapon designed purely to crush steel and shatter bone. Desperate to carve a path through the melee to save his son, Maekar begins swinging this mace with raw, unthinking kinetic power.
But wait, if Maekar is an experienced warrior, how does he just lose control? I mean, in a melee, spatial awareness is everything. Is he really just swinging blindly at anyone in his way?
You have to consider the sensory deprivation of the environment. Maekar is looking out through a narrow slit in a great helm. His peripheral vision is almost non-existent.
Oh, like looking through a mail slot.
Exactly. His hearing is entirely muffled by steel, the roaring of the crowd, the screaming of horses, and his own blood pounding in his ears from the adrenaline. It is a chaotic, blind environment.
That is terrifying.
And in that fatal, blinding fury, Maekar's black mace connects with the head of the man standing in his way. He accidentally delivers a catastrophic strike to his own brother, Baelor Breakspear, right in the skull.
Oh, man. It's the absolute worst statistical probability becoming a reality.
And what makes this moment so haunting is the eerie lack of immediate consequence. The physics of the blow are lethal, yes, but in the sheer noise and confusion of 14 armored men fighting in the mud, this monumental, history-altering fratricide goes completely unnoticed.
Nobody sees it.
Nobody. Baelor doesn't immediately fall. The trial ends moments later when Aerion yields. The accusation is withdrawn, Dunk is declared free, the crowd erupts into deafening cheers.
They think it's a happy ending.
Everyone believes the day is won, utterly oblivious to the nightmare that has just occurred right in the center of the field.
So what does this all mean? I mean, when we pull back and look at the blood and the mud of the Ashford meadow, The core lesson of this brutal lore is stark. Street smarts, adaptability, and sheer will are going to keep you alive far longer in this world than any shiny chivalric vow.
That's the truth of it.
Dunk survived because he remembered the asymmetrical warfare of the Flea Bottom gutters, not the choreographed dances of the singers. But the cost of that survival, the cost is astronomical.
The cost is incomprehensible because as the dust settles, the physiological reality of Baelor's injury sets in. The immediate aftermath is chilling.
It's so hard to visualize without cringing.
Dunk, exhausted and bleeding, approaches the crown prince to pledge his eternal fealty, grateful beyond words. Baelor stands victorious. He looks fine. He accepts the pledge, but his words are slurred.
Yeah.
He tells Dunk almost casually that his fingers feel strangely like wood. He is losing his motor functions.
It's the horrific reality of severe neurological trauma, and then comes the gruesome reveal. Baelor calls for his squires, Raymond Fossaway and the blacksmith, Steely Pate.
This part is just wow.
They step forward into the mud and they reach up to unfasten the clasps of Baelor's magnificent black helmet. And this is where the physics of the armor turn against him. The steel helmet was acting as a rigid cast. It was the only thing holding the prince's shattered skull together.
Keeping the pressure in.
Exactly. As the squires pull the steel away, the structural integrity of his head goes with it. The back of Baelor's skull falls away, and Baelor Breakspear, the absolute brightest hope of the Targaryen dynasty, collapses into the mud, dying right there in the arms of the hedge knight he rode out to save.
It is a devastating, sickening loss. The perfect King Westeros never had is gone, taken out not by an enemy army, but by a blind swing in a meaningless dispute.
It is a story that strips all the glamour away from this world, and it absolutely stays with you. Listen, if you want to survive the coming winter, and if you want to help us uncover the mechanisms behind more of these dark, buried secrets from the Targaryen graves, make sure you subscribe to the channel, like this deep dive, and share it with your fellow lore keepers. We're going to keep digging through these forbidden archives.
But before we leave you, there's one final, lingering psychological thread I want you to mull over on your own. A thread of this tragedy that extends far beyond the mud of Ashford.
Yeah.
We know Baelor is dead, but what happens to the mind of Prince Maekar? What happens in those quiet, suffocating moments in his tent when the adrenaline finally fades, the tourney grounds are silent, and Maekar realizes the physics of what his mace just did?
Oh, the realization.
He realizes he has just accidentally murdered the brother he spent his whole life resenting. He didn't just kill his blood, he violently destroyed the only true stabilizing hope for the realm. How does a man, already poisoned by a lifetime of feeling inferior, live with the psychological weight of that ghost?
It's a terrifying question. Because as we've seen today, the grandest illusions of honor and dynasty are incredibly fragile. When the banners fall and the trumpets fade, the brutal machinery of history is always waiting for you, and it is always bought with teeth, broken bones, and mud.